Welcome to my YouTube channel Wise Whispers, where silence speaks. My name is Windsor, and I am 63 years old. I have lived long enough to understand that sometimes the deepest wounds are not caused by strangers, but by the people you love the most. But nothing in my life prepared me for what happened on that unforgettable evening. It was a warm Saturday night when my son Daniel invited me to a celebration party at his luxurious new house. Daniel had recently received a big promotion at his company, and he and his wife, Claire, wanted to celebrate with friends, colleagues, and family. When I arrived, the house was full of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. Expensive decorations hung from the walls, and people dressed in elegant suits and sparkling dresses moved around the living room. I wore my best old grey suit, the same one I had worn to Daniel's university graduation years ago. As I stepped inside, I felt proud. You see, Daniel hadn't grown up with wealth. His mother and I worked hard our whole lives to give him a good education. I spent 30 years working long shifts as a mechanic. My hands were always stained with oil, but I never complained. Every extra hour I worked meant Daniel had a better chance at a bright future. And that night, seeing his beautiful house, I felt like all those sacrifices were worth it. "Dad, you made it," Daniel said quickly when he noticed me near the door. But his smile felt rushed, almost forced. Claire walked over beside him, holding a glass of wine. She looked at me from head to toe with a polite but cold smile. "Oh, Windsor," she said lightly, "you came early." I nodded kindly. I didn't want to miss your special night. For a while, everything seemed normal. I stood quietly near the dining table, greeting a few guests. Some people asked who I was, and I proudly replied, "I'm Daniel's father." Most smiled politely, though I noticed a few surprised looks. Maybe they expected someone richer, someone more elegant. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of Daniel's co-workers asked loudly, "Daniel, who prepared all this food? It's amazing." Before Daniel could answer, Claire laughed and raised her glass. "Oh, that," she said casually, "that's our servant. He helps with little things around here." She pointed directly at me. For a moment, the room fell silent. My heart froze. I thought maybe it was a joke, some strange misunderstanding, but then Daniel laughed awkwardly and added, "Yeah, he's always helping us out." A few guests chuckled politely. But to me, it felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. Servant. That word echoed in my mind like a hammer striking metal. I looked at my son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders when he was little. The boy whose school fees I paid by skipping meals sometimes. The boy whose dreams I protected like a treasure. And now, in front of dozens of strangers, he let them believe I was nothing more than a servant. I felt humiliation burning inside my chest. But I didn't shout. I didn't argue. Instead, I slowly walked toward the center of the room. "Excuse me," I said calmly. Everyone turned to look at me. Claire looked nervous. Daniel suddenly avoided my eyes. I took a deep breath. "My name is Windsor, and I am 63 years old," I said gently. "And yes, I suppose I have been a servant my whole life." The guests looked confused. I served long hours in a mechanic's shop so my son could go to school. I served overtime shifts so he could attend university. I served every dream he ever had, even when it meant sacrificing my own. No one laughed now. The room was completely silent. I looked directly at Daniel. "But tonight I learned something important," I continued softly. "A servant is someone who works without respect, and I realize now, maybe I deserve more respect than that." Claire's face turned pale. Daniel's eyes filled with shame. One of the guests whispered, "Wait, that's his father." A few people began murmuring uncomfortably. I reached into my jacket pocket and placed a small envelope on the table. "For your house," I said calmly, "the last payment I promised to help with." Daniel looked shocked. "You helped pay for the house?" someone asked. I nodded quietly. Then I turned toward the door. Daniel finally rushed forward. "Dad, wait, I didn't mean." I raised my hand gently. "It's all right, son," I said. "Just remember one thing." He looked at me helplessly. A man who is ashamed of the hands that raised him will eventually lose the ground he stands on. Then I walked out of the house. The cool night air felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in many years, my heart felt lighter. Sometimes dignity is more valuable than any family bond. Weeks later, Daniel came to my small home. His eyes were red from crying. He apologized again and again. People at the party had found out the truth. Many of his colleagues criticized him. Some even lost respect for him. But I didn't want revenge. I simply wanted my son to understand. Respect cannot be bought with money, big houses, or fancy parties. It is built through gratitude and humility. And that night, he finally learned that lesson. Moral of the story: never be ashamed of the people who sacrificed everything for you. Respect for parents is not just love, it is the foundation of true character.